Hey guys, it's Hink here. So today we are going to be discussing a very important topic. You all know how passionate I am about pumping, but I don't know that I've made like an explicit video about all the potential things that can go wrong when you pump. That's what this video is going to be about. Basically the top 10 things pretty much in order that you need to worry about when you're pumping, okay? And this could be something like a bathmate before, and now I'm not going to have that extra bonus. Just don't be one of those people. And so I would advise you one of two things. Number one, never pump immediately before you go out to have fun, especially if there's somebody that you're going to be in a long-term relationship with or be seeing multiple times, because you will. I've seen multiple posts about guys who pump up and then put that pressure on themselves to make sure they're always pumped. Also, don't buy into the temporary gains, okay? Measure like the morning after or something where you know that it's basically all of those kind of temporary edema has worked its way out of your system, and so you have a more realistic expectation. And guys, I've made so many videos about realistic expectations. So number two is going to be hard flaccid, guys. Hard flaccid is kind of like the boogeyman of PE, okay? If you guys haven't seen my videos, I've made at least 2 videos here that you can click on if you want to know, what is hard flaccid? Oh my gosh, how do I know if I have it? So I made several videos on it, and I also have a full-fledged course, guys, below in the description if you're interested. Hopefully you're not suffering from hard flaccid. But guys, I'm going to read you this quote that I always bring up, okay? From this paper on a comprehensive review of hard flaccid, and it basically says, although the pathophysiologic mechanisms of hard flaccid are not well understood, symptom onset is suggested to be related to penile trauma, so incidents of vigorous intercourse or masturbation, including jelqing, among other activities that traumatize the base of the erect penis and its associated neurovascular bundle, guys. Here's a guy literally from today, okay? Now, of course, he's using a bathmate. He's not using a pump with even a hand pump. And he says, once again, like I always say, guys, you have the bathmate and you put it on and you press too hard and you squirt too much water out too fast, and all of a sudden, boom, you feel a pop and your D goes limp, and then it doesn't work again, basically. It usually recovers. But that's exactly what this guy did. I just read you a paper that talks about the dangers of any kind of trauma to an erect penis, guys. If you're pumping, you are going to end up with an erect penis because the blood is going to fill into the chambers of your penis, basically. In general, I think pumping is one of the lower risk, if not like very low risk activities, especially when you do it correctly, like a pump with a gauge from peakmalephysique.com. In general, it's safe. You get into trouble if you're pumping too quickly, pumping up too fast, or you're using a device where you don't know how much pressure you're going to. And guys, I made videos that break down exactly how much pressure to use, how much set time to use, how much total pumping time. Like, we actually have science we can point to do this safely. So don't be an idiot and be out here just like freelancing it with a pump that doesn't have a gauge, doing sets that you're not timing, etc. Okay, so please be careful. Number 3, we have basically something that we call LymphangioSclerosis or sclerosing lymphangitis, or basically a lymphocele. Basically what happens is the negative pressure from the pump causes inflammation of your lymphatic channels and can cause those channels to swell. Okay, we're going to put some pictures up on the screen of kind of what sclerosed lymphatic channels look like, but they basically look like an enlarged noodle or sometimes even a little bean under the skin. Back when I started this about 4 years ago, actually, like this wasn't even something that was talked about. And I had it and I started panicking, and, you know, nobody could really help me. And that's part of what like was my origin story about why I have this heat channel. But guys, this is mainly a cosmetic issue, okay? If this is going away typically within anywhere between 4 to 8 hours after your pumping session or your clamping session or your manual session, it's really nothing to worry about, okay? Where you need to start to be concerned is if you go to bed with it and you wake up with it the next morning and it's still there. That could be indicative that this is starting to sclerose or basically harden or scar down. And when it actually becomes sclerosed rather than just a lymphocele, that's when it stays there permanently, and you have to take much more time off, and things like massages won't help, okay? In general, this is a cosmetic issue. It's kind of a worst case scenario. Guys, I have a whole video on like lymphatic issues. Please check it out. But there are certain times where it can affect the light channel to the point where you actually need to get surgery to get it removed. So it's not really like a huge deal because it doesn't impair function or sensitivity, but just something to be aware of. And extremely common with pumping. Varicocele, okay, or even varicose veins on the penis. And so a varicocele is when you basically have some of the veins that like wrap along your spermatic cord into your testicle. They distend. In its like worst case, it could actually start to put pressure on your testicle and cause your testicle to actually fail, basically, to stop producing testosterone. There is something semi-related called a hydrocele, where it's basically like a fluid-filled sac in that area that can do something similar. The reason why this matters, guys, is pumping can potentially make those things worse. So either through the active negative pressure or through actually having the base of the pump kind of at the base of of the spermatic cord, putting pressure on those cords, causing that venous drainage to actually back up, causing that varicocele. And guys, I have a video, Time to Panic or something, but it's all about varicoceles and even testicular health. So check that out if you want to know in depth. Now, in general, guys, like I talk about this in my actual enlargement course, link is in the description, guys, but you need to know what your baseline is. So before you do any kind of PE, you need to assess your actual testicles, see how they feel, see if you have a hydrocele or varicocele to actually start with. And then even if you do, guys, you'll probably be okay. Just make sure you keep an eye on it and make sure that it is not continuing to change or continuing to worsen. So number 5, guys, is actually testicular damage. Once again, when you have that pump against your body, okay, and you're pumping it up to negative pressure, that is exerting pressure back on your spermatic cord, okay? Not your testicles directly, but your spermatic cord is what has basically nerve, artery, and vein, vas deferens, okay, all going down into the testicles so you can have healthy testicular function. So if you have something, so let's say you don't listen to me and you haven't seen my video on the ideal set time and you're doing 15-minute sets, guys, you're causing hypoxia, meaning lack of oxygen, which can cause to like ischemia damage, which basically means like chronic oxygen deprivation to the tissue, okay? I break down all the markers that you can see in that, guys. Check out the videos. I don't have time for that today. But the point is, you can actually occlude the blood flow enough where you could actually start to temporarily start damaging your testicles. Now, that's very, very unlikely, especially if you're doing short sets like you should be doing. But there are guys that take it to an extreme or leave the pump in place, or heaven forbid, there was some dumbass that actually slept with a pump on. That's how you end up with permanent damage to either your penile tissue or your actual testicles. If you're concerned, oh my God, do I have any kind of like testicular damage? Well, number one, you could actually get testing done, like get your testosterone levels checked, your free test, your like LH, FSH, all that stuff to make sure all your hormones are in balance. But if you are concerned about any potential fertility issues, before you got started with any of this, you should get a fertility workup. Get your sperm, like sperm count, sperm quality, get all that stuff checked so you know what your baseline is. And so if you get checked later and your sperm function is decreasing, then you know. But guys, that's a very, very unlikely thing. I don't want any of you guys to start panicking. Oh my gosh, am I ruining my testicular health? It's extremely unlikely, especially if you're doing pumping the safe way, which, not to sound like arrogant, but it's literally the way that I've described based on actual medical science and medical papers. Once again, guys, I don't have time in this video to go through like everything. So if you're interested in learning real science-based penile enlargement based on real safe techniques with proven results, my link is in the description, okay, for my course. So number 6, guys, is going to be discoloration, okay? It's something called hemosiderin staining. Basically, when you apply the negative pressure, it causes the little capillaries and blood vessels to leak blood out into the lining of the tissue. When that blood breaks down, it actually breaks down into like an iron, one of the variants of iron deposition, which leaves this like purple or brown, like bruising in the area from that discoloration. It's not actually a bruising process, guys. I have a whole video on discoloration and hemosiderin staining if you want to check it out. Now, guys, this is purely a cosmetic issue. That not everybody gets it. Some people are very prone to it. Some people are not. For me, I'm like darker skin compared to like my Caucasian friends, but I still have very prominent discoloration on my D. My girl has never made it like an issue that I'm aware of. She's never mentioned it, at least, but it is actually quite prominent, okay? It's a cosmetic issue. If you guys want it to go away, typically if you stop PE, it will largely reverse. In some cases, when you've been doing it for years and years and years, you probably are going to need something like either a chemical peel or an iodine peel or something like that to actually remove that outer layer and actually have like that fresh skin. Or you just don't care, kind of like me, and you're like, hey, he's way bigger, I'm good with that. And guys, I'm probably going to make a discoloration video part 2, talking more in depth about what causes it and actual like ways to prevent it, ways to reverse it, any creams that have any kind of merit whatsoever, okay? But in the meantime, check out my video that I made about Petechiae, okay? Little purple spots, little red dots, which have a relatively similar process when I talk about some of those things as well. Watch it after this. So guys, number 7 is just going to be edema, okay? Like edema in itself is not particularly dangerous. You apply the negative pressure through the pump, it's going to immediately start drawing in fluid into basically your interstitial layers, okay? The layers of your skin, the layers of your soft tissue. It's not inherently problematic in the sense that it doesn't cause like any cosmetic issues, but if you do it too much, it can be like unsightly. And I've said it before, like you can have that Quasimodo D where like you have a normal looking D and then like after it's all pumped up and like the actual urethra opening is like swelling up and it looks like some chick with lip fillers. Like, it's not a good look, guys. And it can affect, like if you have this big, soft, squishy, boggy D, it can affect your actual performance. Not a big deal, but you just need to be aware that if you pump for too hard or for too long, or your set time is too long, that's what can lead to that edema. So guys, number 8 is going to be petechia. You guys have seen my video on petechia, red dots. If you haven't seen it, check it out. They're just little red dots that occur. They normally go away. Not particularly problematic, but if you're not careful, it can lead to that hemosiderin deposition that we just talked about. Number 9, ingrown hair, guys. Between the actual like pump being in place, potentially irritating that area, or the actual like negative pressure itself, putting pressure on those hair follicles, because you typically need to shave to get a good actual seal, a good base for the pump, but you can have an increased risk of ingrown hairs. It's not a big deal. The hair follicle usually runs its cycle. You might have a little like white head that basically pops up that you might have to pop. It is something to just be aware of. If that happens, you know, and you do get a whitehead, you can express the fluid there, but just try to keep the area clean, try to keep it dry. Or if it's really bothersome, just give it a break, let that heal up until and before you restart any kind of PE. And then lastly, guys, is going to be infection. If you do not clean your pump, it is still very unlikely you're going to get an infection. Okay, it just is. By the nature of having a penis, it means you have a much longer urethra than women. And so even if there's some bacteria that comes in at the tip of your penis, it's extremely unlikely that it's going to travel all the way back down your urethra and actually cause some sort of cystitis or infection of the bladder. Now, that being said, it's a good idea to have good hygiene, okay? You know, you should clean your pump. Certainly, if you start to see any kind of buildup, any kind of smell, any kind of, not discharge, but any kind of like just buildup along the walls, just clean it, guys. It's really a matter of just getting some soap and water and something like a pipe cleaner, okay, or a bottle cleaner, and just go along the wall, scrub it out, you know, soap and water, and then just let it dry, okay? There are also disinfectant sprays that you can have. You just want to be careful that they don't have any kind of irritation to your actual penile skin. And the other thing that you should do after every pumping session is actually make sure you pee afterwards, because you pee afterwards, it's going to help clear out your urethra if any bacteria did get in there. All right, guys, this video is a little longer than I intended it to be. Hopefully it was helpful. If it was helpful, guys, please just leave a thumbs up. I work real hard on these videos, and so many of you guys are watching and not subscribed. But for my subscribers, I love you guys very much. I'm on my way to 30K. Really appreciate you. The links to all my products, including how to reach me through my Patreon, is in the description, okay? But guys, remember, there's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are, okay? Love you guys. All right, peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle of that below the belt, yeah. Checks and balance, he's managing. Working miracles, no damage. Got you covered, no panicking. Stay calm. In the clinic, no vanishing. Yeah, with Doc Hink, it's the way back.